All right, the coffee has just arrived. It is 11 a.m. Eastern. It's a Wednesday, so we're here. Coffee with Creators. You know what's up. I think this is the 80th episode, 80. Can you believe that? I can because I'm feeling it. Anyway, this is not a green screen. This is 42 West 18th Street. You guys know you are always welcome here for a class, whatever you want to get into. There's always something going on here. And right now I got Geoffrey Berliner with me. But before I let this guy drive me crazy, let's get some stuff out of the way. You know what's up. I got to say a quick thank you to our sponsor. It's actually the Adorama Trade and Use department. You can't see it because there's all this stuff on here. But Adorama Trade, you know what's up. If you're looking to upgrade your gear, trade in your stuff, move on, or just find stuff that might be hard to find, the Adorama Trade department's all over the place with that kind of stuff. And you get up to an 180-day warranty with some of the things on there. So make sure you check it out daily. I'm not making this up. A lot of my colleagues and peers come in here and show me all the stuff that they found that right under my nose that I probably could have used. This guy's here. Almost daily I see you in that used department, and you're going to see a lot of the cool stuff that he might have picked up, Frankenstein and stuff like that. But check out Adorama's used department, trade in some of your gear, and always look out for special deals. There's trade-in bonuses, all sorts of stuff always going on. And this is something you're not going to find at that Jungle website. You're not going to find it at a big box store. You're going to find it right here at a legit camera. I always call them like camera society stores, you know, but 42 West 18th Street, or check it out online. And I want to give a quick shout out to Tenba because they found out that we do this show and they want to support it. So you get a custom Tenba camera bag with an engraved Coffee with Creators plaque on it. So Tenba's been around forever. They've been around since 1977, started by a photographer right here in New York. And I'm sure you've had a bunch of Tenba bags.
Oh, yeah, many.
And not for nothing, they got everything from rollers, cases, sling bags, and little tech pouches that I love. I have them in every one of my bags. They have clear windows on them, so I know what's in them. Check out the links down below for everything Tenba. And last but not least, I want to give a huge thank you to Gotham Roasters for the coffee. Cheers, guy. He just mixed in his raw sugar. What'd you get?
I got a latte. That's what I got.
Just regular milk, huh?
Regular milk.
Straight up.
Straight up.
Guy.
With the raw sugar. I like the raw sugar.
The raw sugar. Gotham is one block up on 19th Street. So they're owned by a photographer and a filmmaker. So if you come into a class, go over there, get some coffee, say Adorama sent you, and come hang out here for a free class. And we're supporting the industry, right? People are people. We do things, you know? And finally, Geoffrey Berliner. Who is this guy? A lot of people ask that because they see him all over the place in the photo community. But then you hear all the stories, you know about the legends, and then they put the face to the legends. This guy has started a nonprofit organization here in like 2007 till 2024, teaching everybody how to do wet plate collodion, processes that are we're trying to not forget. Large format. We've got a lot of heavy portraiture work from this man. He has fostered a lot of the key talent that you might see out there today, went through some of his tutelage, his instruction. He has a massive collection of some of the coolest gear I've ever seen. I ask this guy if he has something all the time, and if he doesn't know it, they didn't make it. Always Frankensteining something together with some vintage lenses onto newer bodies. We got some stuff here today, but I figured you guys need to know who this is. And if you're ever in Adorama and you walk by the used department and you see a guy sitting on his reserved stool, it is Geoffrey Berliner. So make sure you go follow him and stay up on all the stuff. Geoffrey, thanks for coming to finally do this.
Thank you, Seth. It's great to be here.
Man, you were all energy before. Now I love him. He's like a shop teacher. He shows up, got 16 pens, and you have like a tire gauge somewhere in there.
No tire gauge. Just vintage fountain pens. Something dear to my heart. It's over my heart. Because I used to restore and sell vintage fountain pens before I founded this organization. And got into photography. I was doing fountain pens, and there was a large community of people who loved fountain pens. They're kind of analog. You know, the
fountain pen is analog?
Fountain pen is analog compared to how people type on their computers. But back in the late 1980s and 2000s, I ran a company called Berliner Pen where I restored vintage fountain pens and sold them and collected them. And it's in my blood to collect things. I love mechanical things.
You're not just. I don't ever think of you as a collector. I think of you as a more of a preserver. Like I feel like you're constantly like salvaging, saving, restoring, putting it back out there, and also letting people know it exists.
Exactly. That's funny. It's exactly. I look at it as I'm a custodian. I don't really see it that in a way because I'm holding on to. I'm learning about it. There's history to all of these cameras and lenses and also photographs. And I like to learn. I'm very curious. I like to understand. photography on various levels, not just on equipment, but equipment is a big part of it. It's very hard to make a photograph without equipment. And understanding how this equipment was used in the 19th century all the way to the present.
The first time I met this guy, he said, "Hi, I'm Geoffrey Berliner. I'm a gear hound." That's the one. That's what you started out with, and this was like forever ago. But you still feel you're a gear hound, huh?
I still love things. There's still things I find that I enjoy. I recently found a camera on eBay that it wasn't described as such because the person who put it up didn't really know what it was, and it ended up being the actual camera owned by the Photo-Secessionist named Carl Struss. It was his actual camera.
How did you know?
Because there was a monogram on the lens. The monogram I recognized as his monogram that he put on all the gear that he owned, his own personal gear. He invented something called the Struss Victoria lens. In fact, that camera on the top there, if you go to that camera there, it's a really funny story, actually. Yeah, so that camera, that lens, that's a very rare lens. That's the Carl Struss lens that came up a week before. I don't know how these things happen, but that lens came up on eBay, and I bought it. It's a Struss Victoria lens. He hung out with Stieglitz, and he was part of the 291 gallery over on Fifth Avenue. Anyway, he became a cinematographer. And he made a lens. He produced a lens he invented and produced a lens called the Struss Victoria lens, which is known to have only one element in the back. It's a single element lens called the Wollaston meniscus lens, but he used that uncorrected lens for soft focus effect to create sort of artistic effect on photography. Part of the Photo-Secession was to make photography elevated to a art form through Stieglitz and Coburn and all these other photographers who were working. Even Ansel Adams was part of that movement to some degree. Anyway, this lens comes up. It's a doublet. It's a lens in the front and the back. It's the only one I'd ever seen, that particular lens. And then I slapped it on a Graflex Super D, and I shot with it. In fact, there are examples of that on my shot with that lens on my Instagram account. Geoffrey Berliner, at Geoffrey Berliner with a G, and you can go check it out. But the thing about that lens, I'd never seen it before. A week later, this camera comes up that has another. That one is engraved Struss Victoria lens. The one that I found had a monogram KS with a stylized KS, Carl Struss. And it was on that camera, and then I looked at the camera, and on the back it says, scribbled on the back, Struss, and the camera had been completely modified, and I recognized that monogram, and I got out my book on Carl Struss, and there on his movie camera is that exact KS.
Did you get it appraised? Did you go and like?
I don't even. You can't appraise it. So I authenticated it because I contacted the Amon Carter Museum in Fort Worth, Texas, that has all of his papers that were donated after he passed away, and there are photographs of him holding that camera.
Nice. So it's picture ID'd
it's picture ID'd in a sense, and also it's clearly his lens, and he also modified. He did all these modifications. He was a Frankensteiner as well, which is why I relate to him. He became the first Academy Award winner for cinematography, working, I forget the name of the movie, but he also worked, because he moved to California. This is about 1917, after the war. And he did all kinds of modifications and Frankensteins and movie cameras. And he always put that monogram on all of his cameras. If you look up Carl Struss, you can see in front of his book, and there's that KS. So anyway, that's how I know it's his. And he also worked with The Great Dictator, on The Great Dictator with Charlie Chaplin. And he was a very well-known cinematographer up until like the 1960s, 70s.
Am I going to see you on an episode of Pawn Stars going up to Rick with this camera and trying to get
Rick?
No, but it's kind of crazy that I think most people wouldn't even go out of their way to look for that signature and figure out what that signature is. They just go, "Oh, cool camera. What can I do with this?"
Right.
Or a lot of people just get old cameras and walk around with them as like a fashion thing, just to wear them now.
Well, people still carry new cameras. How many people walking around the streets of New York with a Leica, with an M10 or whatever? It's like, which is fine. I love the thinginess of it. I love the beauty of all cameras, even modern cameras. But I love the history. I love understanding them. If I don't understand something, or if I haven't seen something, I want to know what it is. I'm curious.
So one thing I wanted to ask you, because we always talk about you Frankensteining, and we'll get into all that kind of stuff. But what I want to know is, at what point do you feel okay Frankensteining versus preserving? Because you often take things and put them together, but like sometimes it's parts off of something else. That when do you call it a day for that, or when do you try to preserve it?
There are certain cameras that are in pristine condition or are historical that I will generally leave alone. If it's part of a collection in terms of a historical artifact, I tend to leave it alone. And sometimes it doesn't even have to work because it fits into understanding the development of a particular part of part of gear. It could be a camera, or it could be a lens. And there are certain things that fit into a slot. You want to understand the development of the photographic lens. You want to have in your collection something that represents the earliest lens, the Wollaston meniscus lens, which is one piece of glass, an achromat, a pencil portrait lens, and so on and so forth. And then there are all the experiments in between. They're trying to get rectilinearness. So I'm always looking for that transition. The opticians are always, and the technicians are always trying to, and the companies are always trying to make it perfected and make it better. And there's something really interesting about understanding what they did to get there. But the other part of it is the artists come along and they say, wait a minute, this lens that was made maybe 20 years previous to when they were using it in the 19th century gives a particular effect. And they like the imperfections.
The character.
They like the character of that lens. And people still do that now, lens babies and things like that. But back then, they would use a lens. They would find it had a particular effect, a curved field or a particular bokeh, so on and so forth. And the lens was 20 or 30 years old. During the Photo-Secession period with Alfred Stieglitz, he said, well, wait a minute, maybe we can perfect those imperfections. Maybe we can make soft focus lenses that help artists express themselves, and they're always, or most of the time, based on old designs. And then the camera and lens companies say, we're going to make these lenses for this particular movement at that time, which is around, the early 1900s, late 1890s, all the way through the 1930s, the soft focus effect lenses or special effect lenses. And there were probably 100 or more different kinds of soft focus lenses that were made to cater to this idea of using these kinds of lenses for artistic purposes.
Yeah, but I think that now, at least the vibe I feel, especially the way I work, is since the lenses are getting so clinical, feeling very sharp, and when we say rectilinear, we mean corrected for like straight lines. So if it's a wide angle lens, when they say it's rectilinear, it means that you'll actually get a straight line instead of warping going on, right? Architectural type stuff, things like that.
Yeah, horizon is flat, and things like that.
Don't you think there's a thought process to get the clinical lens and then do stuff to the lens how you want after that? Start with the best and degrade it from there.
Well, first of all, back then there was this idea, and just to get back to Photo-Secession, is that the art world decided that photography was a science, a technology. It was something to describe, and there was something. You took a photograph for the artist. It was too sharp. It was too perfect. They're having the same conversation basically. Back then, they were saying, the photographers were saying this is too clinical. There was something to use to document, and that's what photography. And by the way, photography is large. It's not just street photography or commercial photography. Photography. You go on the bus and you see an advertisement or something. Photography. You look at your phone. Photography is so pervasive in so many ways that people find their own little niche. And the artist back in that time decided, I wanted to be expressive. I didn't want to be clinical. I'm not trying to describe something. I'm trying to express something through the medium of photography on different levels. And
you mean in the 1900s they didn't care about people hitting like on things? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Back then,
they didn't care about comments under their photos?
Exactly.
What?
They had the critics for the likers.
But also, images lasted a lot longer out there. Like,
right.
We didn't just scroll past them in 7 seconds. They were in a gallery. They were in front of you.
You had to go to a gallery to look at them. Then, of course, there were magazines. There were art. There were still photo books, things like that. And there were ways of reproducing photographs in different ways. The disseminated newspapers had photographs in them. So remember
they still do, that. Right?
I know they still do. But that was a big thing when they started putting photo before they invented the I forget what it's called, the screen dot photogravures and things like that. But the point for me, it was very important for me, was when I started this foundation that I founded. I was getting into large format photography and collecting early gear, and everything was going digital. And a big part of the problem for me is that I wanted to use this equipment and this gear for what it was meant to be used, or use it on film. If I had a really old brass lens, I wanted to use it on wet plate collodion, which is what it was used for.
This is, just so you guys know, this is some of the stuff that he actually shot. So what? This is wet plate, isn't it?
This is a wet plate, 8x10 wet plate. I used a lens from the 1860s, a Dallmeyer 4A, which I think is an 18-inch f4 lens. Very fast f4. This is actually a 14 by 17 inch, and I used a lens called a Usner 26-inch f4.5, which was made in New York City in the 1850s.
Can you talk about why lenses in that are inch and not like by millimeter and stuff, like they always talk about it like that?
Yeah, well, the conversion factor, if it's 18 inches, you multiply that by 2.54, and that gives it to you in millimeters. So an 18 inches close to a 480 millimeter lens, something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
have a 14-inch Kodak lens on my Ilix.
Yeah,
And
probably an Ektar, commercial Ektar,
yeah, a
something
commercial
like that.
Ektar. Yeah.
That's a 360, I think, 360 millimeter, things like that.
Yeah, and so I live here on one of the Monday streams. I adapted it to my GFX 102, and you quickly
Wow.
saw what that lens does on that much resolution.
Right.
And you're like, huh.
But you're only getting like that.
Well, you were cropping in.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. But I just wanted to get back to this idea. For me, is that at the time there was this worry that film was going to disappear.
Oh, really? You thought that?
Oh, yeah. When digital was coming around, there were actually people who were literally, a lot of my collection came about because I went to the flea market, or people called me, or I went to some camera shows, and the prices dropped because people thought that nobody was ever going to use this stuff again, that digital was going to take over. And I think I was part of a movement. I like to think that I helped people realize that perhaps there's something important about using old gear, getting into the darkroom, the creative process of taking time, experimentation, in a hands-on, in a chemical way, in a physical way.
Each image you're invested.
You're invested in it. You're taking the time to. You're using a large format camera is very different than using a digital camera. Instead of click, click, click. What do they call it? Spray and pray.
Oh, spray and pray. Oh,
you
don't like 30 frames a second. You're basically shooting video at this point.
When I shot the New York Yankees on my Big Bertha 5x7, I was with all of these. I was in a phalanx of photojournalists who were shooting their digital camera. There were, I don't know how many, and that's how they were shooting. I got to shoot one at a time, and I got some, I thought, pretty nice shots on 5x7, and I shot the way they shot, and I enjoyed the whole process of learning how to use it, using that camera in that particular way. But the point I want to make is that I wanted to be able to use this. I wanted to understand the history of photography. I wanted to use the gear as it was meant to be used, and then from there experimenting with it and finding my own voice through that. But you first have to understand it. And then the issue of running out of film, it would be sort of sad to learn how to use these cameras on these formats. And I went as large as I think as 1822 with some of the largest plates that I made and images that I made, that the idea that film would disappear, what would I do? So when I learned about wet plate collodion photography, it's a process that allows you to make a glass negative or a positive on glass.
You coat it yourself.
You're making your own. The chemicals are readily available. You're learning the idea of learning the technique and then developing your own style through that. And then you're making your own film, and you don't have to rely on the film companies. And it's a different look, of course. It's not like film, but it's not like digital. For me, part of the process was as important as, and the process itself was important as the final product.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I regret never taking your class at that. Me and Daniel, we were a few blocks away. Our studio was a few blocks. I regret it all the time. I think about it all the time, and I'm like, man, we really should have taken a wet class with him. I did it maybe in the early 2004. I was doing wet plate, but 4x5 stuff.
Well, it is still. I mean, look. I just want to give a shout out to my friend Jolene Lupo, who worked with me at this organization, and she's teaching workshops. She has a workshop coming up in the spring. She teaches at the cemetery. I forget the name of the cemetery.
Oh, yeah, you said that, right.
Yeah, she's teaching a workshop. It's at the Maple Grove Cemetery, I believe, in Queens, and she does private tutorials, and she also has a tintype studio. In fact, all the equipment that she has, with my equipment, I gave it to her to set up her studio. So she does tintypes there. She does little products. She does tintype pins. She's having a Valentine's Day special. So, and it's a great way to support it. And she's an artist, and she
does cool stuff.
She does very cool stuff. So Jolene Lupo, or at Jolene Lupo, get her on here. Check her out, because I like to give her a shout out.
I'm trading her a Speedotron pack for her to come hang out. I'm not making this up. This is what's really happening.
Get her in here.
This is what's really happening. It's funny when you talk about the price of cameras dropping. I used to live next to a swap meet, and the prices were dropping like crazy at that point. You know what I always looked for was any camera, I don't care what format it was, but I had to have a sync port, because then I knew I could just hot wire it to my strobe and use it, right?
Yeah.
But there was a lot of formats I had to hand cut myself out of 4x5 or 8x10.
Sure.
And I found an 8mm that I had to get a splicer to get 35mm. You'd run it through, you get 3 strips out of it, and you'd wind yourself.
Wow. Talking about, all of this stuff, photography in general, even with digital, it's experimenting, it's hands-on, it's problem solving, which is one of the things I love about it. I love the idea of, I never met a problem I didn't like. People say, oh, this is not going to work, whatever. That's where the rubber meets the road. If you're a good photographer, I don't know what that means, but be a good photographer, but if you're somebody who loves photography, you're presented with problems just about every day.
That's what it all is.
That's what it's all about. And you
variables.
You variable. So when, when I was running the tintype studio, it was very important for us. We didn't have a daylight studio that we can shoot in. We had to develop using strobe, and I was one of the first people that developed using strobe. A lot of power, 4,800 watt cycles.
That is insane.
And also another part of the equation was being able to move with your subject. So I didn't bring one with me, but I modified a Graflex to have strobe so that we can use that format 4x5 and follow the subject and whack them with light.
But that's what it all was. Everything, it wasn't considered modifying. It was like, that's what you did.
You had to do it.
Yeah. You just figured out a rail. You figured out a mounting point. You figured out a way to make that lens project where you needed to project.
Right.
Block it all the light. Because all cameras is a box that lets a certain amount of light in for a certain amount of time.
Right.
That's
and then I'd have to run over to Adorama and get a...
and drive me crazy.
And then get a this or get a that or get a this or get a that. Find something that would make that project happen and make that problem.
But it's got to make you feel good that we're seeing all these boutique film companies pop up now.
Oh, I love it.
They're repurposing cinema film a lot now.
I love it.
And also, even the most modern camera brands right now are going back and giving us a little bit of retro feel of things. Like they're giving kids back their dials and their mechanical stuff on it. Well,
I think people are reacting to digital and to the internet and AI and the idea that they're taking sort of the human hand or the touch or the human sensibility away from creativity. And there are a lot of young people who love film cameras, and the companies are reacting to it.
I think it's a human thing, period, to appreciate a film camera. Like you see it on a shelf, people appreciate it. You watch a YouTube channel and they got like film cameras on a shelf that they never touch just as props. You don't do that unless there's an appeal, right?
It's like when you look at an old car go by, see a Model T or you see an old Cougar or something, everybody stops and looks. All the cars now look the same.
Yeah.
Right? And it's the same thing with cameras. A lot of the new cameras, they're amazing. Some of the things they do now with the camera, I use a digital camera. I use my Sony Alpha. I think I need to get a new one. This one's sort of dying. The look of them is sort of the same. What they can do is amazing. But when you look at an old camera, there's something that connects, something that says, this is the past. What did it do? What kind of image did it make? And people are very curious about that.
For me, it's the speed of it, the slowdown.
Slowing down is very important.
Me and Daniel are actually heading out to a high school next week to teach them darkroom for the first time.
Wow.
3 kids. Daniel, if you're in the chat, where is it? Whoa, what is happening here? So I'm going to leave it. So I think it's in Seaford, but 3 kids out of all of them touched film. They've never even seen it. Never even seen it. So we're going to go take Patterson tanks over there. He got them all Pentaxes to shoot with.
That's great.
And we're going to go over there. And on Friday the 13th of no less, the high holiday for me,
Well, Jolene and I, back in the day, over the course of 2 or 3 years or 4 years, we were invited to Queensborough Community College, and there was a guy named Bob Rogers, who was the head of the department there, and he had a darkroom, and he always taught their kids black and white, and he invited us out to do tintype demonstrations.
Sick.
And the kids, they just went crazy.
Tintypes are so cool.
It just opened up their minds and their way of thinking. But the other thing I want to say about film, and also all of the processes, you end up with a thing. You end up with a negative, and it's good to archive them. Archiving is very important. Very good friend of mine, Malit Buckman, is going to at some point teach a class on archiving physical and digital, because you have to be able to find your things. But the idea of having a physical thing that you can find, most of my digital files, I didn't label them correct. I can't find them. My computer died. The media died, and they're gone.
Well, you just have bad habits digitally. Let's be honest.
I think we all have bad habits. I think a lot of people do. That's a very important thing, is to teach people how to. Maybe you guys should do a little workshop on archiving.
So we do that around World Backup Day, where everyone is supposed to back up all their stuff. It's usually sponsored by like SanDisk or somebody like that. But it doesn't, the whole thing, the whole idea of photography, the way I was taught from the older guys that I assisted, it wasn't even just about the camera in general. Like, so my father went through a bunch of medical stuff, and the way I dealt with it as a young kid was I asked him, don't get digital MRIs and don't get digital x-rays. And he gave me a pile of them, and I made Van Dyke Browns out of all of them.
Wow.
So over my bed is my father's chest x-ray in 1-to-1 ratio. That's the size of his rib cage.
Right.
And I have his MRI showing me his eyes connecting to his brain. And I'll always have that. But I was like, what can I do? Cyanotypes, Van Dyke Brown, gum bichromates. I was going nuts with these things.
That's where art comes from. It expresses, it comes from somewhere. It comes from, wanting to make something to represent an experience that you had. And I had that experience as well with photography. I wanted to make a thing. My father, who, by the way, brought me to Adorama, when it was on 17th Street. I've been coming to the store for
When the sign was red. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. That was, probably almost 50 years ago at this point, 45, 50 years ago. I will always have a relationship with him through his love of photography and him bringing me to stores and meeting just about everybody you can possibly imagine. And of course, Adorama was that place. I mean, you say I'm here all the time. I've been here for the last 50 years.
No, I know. We love you, man.
Yeah.
What's funny is the last time I saw him like a week ago, I saw him back there. I walked back there. He's signing a lens for somebody. Like, I mean, come on, that's cool. Come on.
Was I signing a lens?
Yeah, you were signing a lens board. Are you crazy?
I don't remember.
Oh man, Geoffrey, how many lens boards have you signed? I mean, that's crazy.
The brain is.
How cool is that?
It's
though?
funny because I went through a thing recently. I had a and I got, but you mentioned the imaging, and they sent me. I actually went to get the imaging of the
CAT scan.
It was a CAT scan that they did because I had a mild stroke, and I had to switch hospitals, and I had to get they can't send them, so I had to go to the hospital, and they gave me 7 discs of CDs of my brain, and I'm going through these things, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm looking at my brain, and you gave me a very good idea to sort of thinking about those scans. I did see them in a very artistic way.
Do you have a question?
Yeah.
Sorry guys, I didn't see the chat because you got spammed out of there. So Tennessee Rick, by the way, what's up, man? Hope you're well. He's asking favorite camera that simply enjoys more than the rest. Like, what is it about that camera that makes it your favorite? Because your collection is ridiculous.
It's pretty comprehensive. I mean, it's mental illness collecting because I'm so curious every time I see something I haven't seen. I not only want to, have it in the collection, but I want to use it. I want to understand it. I want to clean it. I want to repair it. I want to find what it fits on. That's a very difficult question. It's like, because they're like children in some respects. I don't play favorites, but
He'll sell them though.
I do. Yeah, I do sell
Trying
cameras.
to buy stuff off you.
I do. I don't enjoy selling, but I do sell them. I try to match cameras and gear to that person. I don't want to sell for the sake of selling. I sell to people who have an interest in it and they're trying to achieve something, or if they just want something. I'm happy if I have a duplicate. I'm happy to guide them and tell them this is what you need, whatever. So at times I do sell things, and I'm happy to discuss that. But to get back to the cameras, it's sort of a stupid way. My favorite camera is the cameras in my hand at that moment.
Oh God, you're so corny. Oh,
It's
come on.
corny, but
keep
in mind. Look, I would look.
How about format?
I love every format has its purpose. When you start diving into it, I like Graflexes. They're probably one of my favorite cameras.
They're a commitment.
Single lens reflex cameras, 4x5. I have a 5x7 that I love. But I love the Rolleiflex SL66. It's probably one of the best single lens reflex cameras, medium format ever made. It's got I modified this one. I put a adjustable iris so I could swap out lenses. I put vintage lenses on there. That's a Heliar on there. The standard lenses are great too. The planar, I think it's the Zeiss planars and things like that came on it. I have those. I shoot those sometimes, depending what the job calls for. Sometimes I get called to photograph, people's children or something like that, and I ask them what they're looking for, and oftentimes they just want something simple. So I use the stock lens. I get a nice. Those lenses give wonderful rendition, but you don't want to experiment necessarily unless they want you to do that. But I want the ability to experiment, so I swap out lenses on things. And I'm always taking a different camera and trying it and learning it. It keeps my brain fresh because you have to learn. Always read the manual before.
If they still exist, you
can get them online.
They're archived.
Yeah, you can find them. And I think it's very good to experiment because when you're experimenting and you learn about what a camera does, it helps you creatively. It says, well, wait a minute, I didn't realize I can do this. This camera allows me to do that. Or this lens has this look. Or this bokeh that gives you a particular look or a feel. And once you experiment and do it, then you can say, I can apply it in this way.
Right.
I think that's a very important aspect of it.
It's a tool, and what is it doing, and what's it going to give me, and how am I going to use it? Exactly. Intentful. Be intentful.
Exactly. And at different f-stops they perform differently, and different lights they perform differently. And I think it's very important for people to experiment with all these different aspects of things because sometimes there's something that will help you didn't even realize existed because you didn't take the time to find out or understand it. And I think understanding doesn't come about easily. You have to experiment, use it, evaluate.
You also have to like it.
And-
You have to want to do it. You know what I mean? A lot
Well,
of
but
people
even liking, you can get something and say, I don't like that.
yeah, but they like the idea of it until they
Right.
got to commit to actually
Right,
getting
right,
into it. A lot of times I bought vintage gear, I was lucky to find notes with it, like the sweet spots of lenses. So I have to run through every f-stop and see what was going on with it or whatever. I'm like, this is amazing, you know? But I do regret selling some stuff. And one of the ones I'll always regret is I sold my RZ system. And it is like the hottest thing ever right now. You can't, as soon as they hit the used department, they're out.
Really?
Yeah, RZs are huge right
Wow,
now.
I have an RZ, and I do like it. I've used it quite a bit. They're just very heavy.
They're a tank. They're a bit of a tank, but like I think it just became like a pop. Like, you know what happens is someone started using it that's popular. Then somebody's on set going, hey, "Where'd you get that? What is that?" Then they buy it.
It's
Now,
like the Contax T2, like some.
well, I still want that Olympus XA or XB whenever you find one. You know, I'm still on.
I gotta dig. So I wanted to say something about liking or not liking. When I started using, getting into the vintage lenses, all these vintage lenses for the most part are uncoated, so they're less clinical. And people say that's an old timey look, and then I would say, well, first of all, there's a whole aspect of because you don't get the contrast necessarily. However,
Well, the coatings, you got to realize flare thing. There's flare out things that happen. And they also cause fringing or aberration, things like that.
there's also saturation. I mean, the idea of coated lens that you use for color photography, you want it to saturate that color so that you get all the color.
And contrast for black and white.
But what I discovered is that, at first I was like, it didn't, I was reacting to what I was getting with my modern. I shot a lot of Leicas. My first Leica was a Leica CL, which I loved, and then my father gave me his SLRs, his R6. R5s, and this idea that Leica is the best they are. They're magnificent cameras, but they're modern. And I was reacting to, we were talking about the clinical nature of photography. Photography is just getting to the point where it all kind of looks the same. It all has the same saturation, the same sharpness, the same.
Yeah, but they're chasing a look. They're emulating instead of creating. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But all the, a lot of. And I think it's very important to be able to, have these corrections, and there's a time to use them, and it's important to understand that. There are times when you want that, and there are times that you don't. So when I started experimenting with these vintage lenses, especially the uncoated ones, the early lenses, they had certainly different fields, different looks, different bokeh, but they had a certain flatness to them that that looks old-timey, but when you start understanding it, if you learn how to print it, you can bring up contrast in the printing of it and also in the lighting of it. But you also realize that you gain more sort of detail in the shadows. You gain more transition in the tonality. And when you start looking at it differently, then I started looking at it differently, and then I wasn't comparing it to the new. I said, what is this look that you're getting? How do I work with it? And what am I getting because of it?
Yeah, but
And the thing about a photograph is that, and I just saw the Man Ray show, which was very interesting. It just closed the other day, and I was looking at these old prints. The look of them is very different. Of course, they were printed, magnificently. Is they draw you in? They make you. You have to go to them on their own level instead of saying it should look like what a Leica makes or what a Canon makes or what a modern camera makes. I like the idea of having to go to the photograph on its own level and understanding it for that. And then you see it differently. And then it's not this is better or that's better. It's this is what this does and this is what that does. And you apply it or you understand it and you use it to help you express yourself.
Yeah, I find that's the hardest thing to teach people is to recognize subtleties and what they are and what's valuable about them. Like even when we're teaching lighting in here, they're like, you're showing two different things. And don't you see the difference in the shape of the jaw? Like, no, you have to, all the little subtleties add up to make the change. And I feel like really seasoned photographers are psychopaths about subtleties that no one else recognizes.
Because they're paying attention.
Yeah, but don't you think that the subtleties also hit civilians and they don't realize it's affecting them? But
I think, look, I think people like things that are done well. They react to something done. They react to an artist or a technician or somebody who's doing something, and they react to something that's done well. You go to a restaurant, they make good food, you react to it. It's a different level to understand, well, why does that taste that way?
Fair.
Why does that photograph, and most people don't ask, they just consume. I like to ask. I like to understand how the sausage is made. I like to understand what went into it because as somebody who wants to create, the creative person wants to understand things so that when they create, they can say, I can apply this. It'll help me to say this.
Right? No, it's fair. I think it's just hard to train someone's eye, but I do think that the word consume is the best thing I could put it. We're flying through any type of media now. We don't even have a chance. And so you follow like like a Peter Lindbergh account or an Avedon account, you're looking at a version of it in low res that's got a light shining through. It's not a print. And so you're not even absorbing it the way that they left it for us.
I say put the phone down, go to a gallery, go to a museum, look at the photograph, take the time to examine what something was made. Can you eat a nice dish on your phone? You have to go and eat it. You have to go to the restaurant.
I think people just
you have to experience it, and looking at it on the phone, backlit.
Backlit.
And this big is not looking at photography. In my mind, is a print. It's a negative. It's a print. Somebody put their time into making that negative, into printing that print in the darkroom, looking at the nuances, finding the tonality, and then putting it on a wall so you can go and look at it. I mean, or in a book. There's some wonderfully printed photo books. You can't get access to the gallery, but I highly recommend find the photographers you like. Oftentimes, there's a show of a particular photographer or an artist at a gallery. Go and look at it.
Well, also the thing about prints is it's a final decision of what it's supposed to be from the person who put it out there, right? Like they don't realize that every screen makes everything look different or whatever, but like a print, like you're existing in front of a final decision of what it really was. Exactly. That the shadow's supposed to open up like that. Highlight's supposed to look like this. Like that's what they're trying to get across.
And even on that note, over the course of the period of a photographer's lifetime, a perfect example is Ansel Adams. I remember seeing an exhibit of Ansel Adams at MoMA maybe 20 years ago, and they had some of his original prints.
That's wild.
That he made. At the time they were made, the Yosemite and so on and so forth. And then they had prints that he made 30 years later.
Different eye.
Side by side. Totally different mood, expression. The earlier ones were darker. The later ones were lighter. I think the earlier ones were more based on what he remembers that light being at that time when he made them. 30 years later, they're different. And it's just interesting to see how a print or an artist will change their vision, as time goes on. And I think it's important to understand that the idea of it being backlit or when it was printed is very important to consider in looking at photographs.
So what would you say to this generation now that, like I said, aren't touching film or whatever? What would you say to get them to get their eye kind of more trained, get into a lane that they could be the most successful in? Like where would you say they should start?
I think you should always start by looking at photographs. You should always start by, if you're on Instagram and you see a particular artist who's working in film, or even if they're working digital and they're printing it, go and look at those photographs. And also find what is important to you. What is it that, when you look at a photograph, what are you reacting to?
Right. Right. Yeah.
What are you feeling? And don't listen to the to the critics or the talking heads or the people who are making a career about writing about it. You have to get away from that. Get away from the derivative understanding of a photograph or art or anything. First, react to it. What do you feel about it? What do you think about it? And then start looking into why that is.
Yeah, I think we lost a lot. I think it became formulaic. They look at something and go, what did you use to do that?
Right.
Wait a second. What? Then you saw everyone using mist filters and then the same look over and over again,
I remember, for years, what got me interested in photography, and this is another important thing. What got me interested in photography, especially art photography, is for, the better part of, 15 years, 20 years, I went to, and I think they got rid of it, they have it anymore, but they had the ICP, had a lecture series every Wednesday night, and I would go. I didn't care who it was. I signed up for the entire lecture series, and whoever was there, I would listen to it. It's very important if you can meet artists, especially hear them talk about their work, see what inspired them. For me, that was very inspiring because I understood their process. Understanding the process helps you find your own process. I'm not saying you should, copy, but if you relate to a particular artist or photographer, if you relate to a particular artist or photographer, ask yourself why that is.
No, absolutely.
And then, I think the art is a very subjective thing. I think the idea, I think great artists are really expressing internally who they are and finding a way to express through a particular medium, a particular way of working, a particular process. Not everybody should be a photographer. I mean, every art form has its own form of expression, right?
I feel like people...
subjective expression. I mean, you find yourself...
Guys, please stop yelling, please. I can't even hear you. I know you guys probably can't hear it, but whatever. I think what people forget is there's a human behind the work. Just like when people bash cameras come out, there's like, it didn't have this feature. It's like there was a bunch of people who made decisions to that. It's not like a faceless thing. Like there's human beings to that. And then understand the people who either do the designing or the people that are shooting, the people that are doing the printing, understand where they were when they were creating that work. You know, it's a whole different thing.
Well, that's why it's important to, if you can, look, I think it's important if you can meet an artist while they're alive, it's very important. If you can go and meet Michelangelo, wouldn't you?
Well, that'd be wild, yeah.
You know, I mean, the point is, I mean, you know, we're left with a lot of art and a lot of dead artists you never get to meet and understand, and then a lot of people write about it. It's very different when you meet an artist and you talk to them. I go into a lecture and having the artist here and asking questions. The reason I thought about that is because she said usually at these lectures there's always one person that says, what camera did you use, what f-stop did you use? It misses the point. People say, you know, what's my favorite camera? They ask that question. It's a good question. I'm not saying it's not a bad question, but when I'm shooting, I'm not thinking about the camera. I'm thinking about what's in front of the camera
And what you're trying to do.
and what I'm trying to do. And it almost dissolves, but I know that I have an idea of what I want to make, and then I'm fortunate to have studied and used and have and find just about it. People, why do you have so many cameras? I said, well, sometimes it's something I want to say or express, or I want a certain look, and I have it. I've experimented with it. I see what it does, and it makes sense for that particular thing.
But I think that it's become more of a modern question. And what I mean by that is I've been teaching here alone for like 15 years, right? Like, but now lately I'm finding myself saying the same line of forget about what I'm shooting with, realize what you're shooting.
Exactly.
Right? Like, because they get so obsessed, because they get, now in this era, you got a million people telling you what you should buy to do a thing instead of what are you trying to do? What do you want to do? And that's the hardest question.
Well, the question always came up when I ran this organization, and I tried to manage it. I don't think I ever really got the final answer, because I asked a lot of artists this and a lot of photographers this. Is it possible to teach somebody to be an artist, or is it innate? Are you born with it? And
Nature
you know,
versus nurture, right?
Yeah, and you know, I think a big part of you can lead a horse to water, you know, but you can't make it drink. Is that a lot of what I was trying to do is to give people the opportunity who wanted to say something, wanted to create something, give them the tools to do it. You can give them the tools, you can teach them how to do it, you can teach them the technique, you can teach them how to make a photograph, but you can't teach them how to have a vision, you can't teach them how to think, you can't teach them how to say something. And that was always something that I think I tried to do. Sometimes if somebody had it in them, sometimes you awakened it in them and it worked, and sometimes it didn't. There's always a person who only cared about the technical side of it, the camera and the this and that, and that's okay too. Look. I think if you're doing something, you're making something, that's different than I think being an artist and making something that says something that has impact or affects other people. But it all exists. I don't want to say one is better than the other.
Look, I lean on that side.
Yeah.
I lean on the technical side
Yeah.
because it's just what I do now, right? But like,
Well, look, I love cameras, so
no, I get it. I get it.
so-
But this is a feel as much as it's a science, and you can't teach the feel. You have to get there, and it'll always change on you. Like you never feel like you got there. I never feel like I got them. 25 years, I don't ever feel like I got there. But then I got so sucked into the commercial side of things that I got more obsessive with the solution of making it this elevated standard of sophisticated light and blah. Not
Right.
what am I saying? What am I hitting
Right,
meetings?
right,
I wasn't getting. So to me, that was the success of the image, right? Was getting there. But I'm not. When I was shooting commercially, I was like, I'm feeding myself and paying my rent. This is amazing. That was like the
it's
best
called
thing ever.
reality. You have
Reality. Come on. What do you think this is? Oh, you guys just woke up. Good morning. Hello. Look at this chat going. If you guys have any questions, please. That's why we're live. Don't forget about that. Kurt's asking, so what projects are in the back of your mind that you would like to someday shoot? Do you have any subject or concept that's on your bucket list?
I have a few projects. I'm always shooting. So
They're this way, by the way.
there you go. I'm always shooting just for the sake of shooting. I like to have a camera with me, and I go out and I shoot. And then I look at it and I evaluate what it is. An endless ongoing project is just portraiture and photographing people, especially people I know and I like and I care about and I love, and looking through those over the years. New friends, old friends, that's one thing that's important. The particular project I'm interested in doing, which is where I live. I live in Chelsea, and this development is sort of a socialist housing complex. I like the idea of doing a micro-macro approach to photographing the actual. There are 10 buildings in this project, and photographing it architecturally, photographing it almost from an aerial perspective, so you can see the the expanse of it, and then meeting people, photographing apartments, people, environmental portraits for people in there, people who've lived there. My grandmother actually was one of the first tenants in there, was founded by the ILGWU, the International Ladies Garment Workers Union. Then my parents lived there, and I lived there. And there are a lot of artists, photographers, writers, all different kinds of people. It's an affordable housing complex in Chelsea, and it's an
Artist
amazing
housing, basically.
it's artist house. Well, yes and no. You know, middle class, working class people live there, and it's affordable housing, which I think really should exist more. But the idea of there are some amazing people, you know, lived in that complex. You know, Bayard Ruskin lived in that complex. Gilbert Gottfried lived in that complex at one point.
He used to come in here all the time.
Yeah.
You could hear him walking in the door. It was
I've
amazing.
met him several times. Very different in person.
He's so funny.
Yeah, very funny. And then he moved out. But you know, the idea of I love meeting people. I love understanding who they are. Taking a photograph of them and having that sort of document is very different than actually meeting them, talking, understanding who they are. And then, you know, also writing about what this complex means and who the people are in it. And then the other part of that is to go out to a place called Rochdale Village, which is where I actually grew up, because it took me, I was on the waiting list for over 10 years to get into the complex. I've been there for 20 years, so maybe 30 years ago I got into that complex. But I grew up in a similar complex called Rochdale Village in South Jamaica, Queens, which is also a Mitchellama. And the same kind of development. You put some money down and your rent is low. It's, affordable housing. And then going back to my roots and photographing there and doing a micro macro approach to it, that would also involve using my cameras. You have to use, technical cameras for architecture, interiors, but then you use portraiture for photographing people, and then getting different vantage points if I wanted to photograph the extent of, I also had the idea of maybe hiring somebody in an airplane so I can fly over it and photographing the entire complex to give an idea.
Well,
yeah. So that's
Strap
a dream.
this to a drone.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? Strap
Well, they
it to a
actually
drone.
had aerial cameras like that, but that's sort of a dream project to be able to do that because it lets me use my gear, lets me meet people, go back to my original apartment that I grew up in, see who's there, see if they're going to be photographed, talk to them, find out what their experience is there, and tie it to a greater context of, what does it mean to live in a city like New York, which is constantly under development, which constantly has issues of affordable housing, and this would be a sort of a way of tying it together.
So let's say if you pull off this project, right? Where does it live? What do you do with it? Gallery, book? What is it? Do you just not do anything? You print to the people and make it quiet?
That's a good question. I don't know. The thing is that the promoting and the marketing of what you do is a very different science than making it. And I think it's very important. And I tell this to a lot of, especially young artists. It's important to understand how to promote yourself. Back in the day, you had a gallerist or an agent that helped you promote work, and they help you to sell it. I think now, it's more democratized where people have to promote themselves. They have to do social media.
Wait a second. You photographed this gentleman, right?
Yeah, that's Ruddy.
Ruddy. Hey, Ruddy.
Ruddy.
Can I catch you up here? Do you mind coming on here? He's got a photo of you. I just want them to see the human and the photo. So, guys,
it's totally serendipitous that Ruddy Roy is here. Amazing photographer, photojournalist.
So that's you.
Documentarian. That's him.
You're a fellow photographer.
I'm a fellow photographer.
How crazy did he drive you? Go ahead.
Not very. I mean, I think the best thing was going to his house and seeing his passion for collecting lenses, vintage lenses, and then hearing the history behind it. Huge impact on my life in terms of slowing down, recognizing not just how easy it is to go to Adorama and buy a new lens, but to also spend the time to understand the character of the lenses that he has, or the image quality that you're trying to get derived from a particular lens. Him.
And what type of photography do you do? I'm sorry.
Portraiture mostly. I've been doing it for 20-something years.
I just wanted to get you on here.
When he was a mere tad, a young lad.
Very rarely do we have a photo that someone shot, the human.
But he's being modest, Check out his work.
Yeah, you're on everything. Yeah.
Check it. Go to his Instagram. He does amazing work.
Shout out your Instagram. Shout out.
It's Ruddy Roy. RUDDYROYE.
Do it slower.
RUDDYROYE.
There you go. Got to give some credit.
And he also does large format, 8x10,
Awesome.
and
Awesome.
works in
I didn't mean to
different
rude
formats.
before, but he was like 2 minutes before he's going live. He's walking away from me, so I had to grab him.
Dear person.
Yeah, man.
Awesome,
He's
man.
amazing.
Awesome.
He's a treasure.
I know. Well, that's why I tried to ask him how long I tried to get him on here.
Long time, years.
He's a treasure.
He is a treasure, and I think you got to get your flowers sometimes. And it's also cool when photographers shoot other photographers. I think it's like a very cool thing.
This is what, the second one?
Yeah, but more than two. I've like several. I have those pictures.
He's photographed.
Yeah, but you're not going to photograph him?
I have to go find him.
You have to, he's right
here.
How long did it take you to get?
I know. He's always here. Just grab him out of the back and just staple him to a wall or something.
I have those 8x10 Polaroids I want to get to you of you and your kid.
Oh, that's cool.
That I still have kicking around.
8x10 Polaroids. Did you do the whole? Did you do the bleach on the
yeah.
peel apart and
We
make
did
a
it in my
negative?
apartment, I think.
Yeah.
You have a negative of it, right?
I don't know if I kept the negative. I have the.
I always do
they
the
were black
bleach
and white.
trick.
The black, white, and the color. Yeah. I found them recently. I had put Ruddy Roy. When you're in the city,
That's
give me a
cool, man.
call.
That's cool, man. Yeah, I appreciate you jumping on here live. I know.
Thank you, man.
No, thank you.
It's an honor, man. It's an honor. It's Jeff.
It's a community, is what it is, right?
And when I met him, we were talking about pens.
He started this off with pens, and he's got 40 of them. Pens.
That's how our relationship started. Pen.
Thanks, man. He just walks out.
Welcome.
He walks out. But I mean, it doesn't get more genuine than that, you know. I don't even. I mean, that speaks
That
for
was
itself.
that was great. It was here. I mean, it was sort of maybe kismet, that he showed.
I
up.
thought he showed up because you told him to come by.
No way. No, that was totally.
Oh, so that's. I mean, that's
That
how
was totally kismet. I mean,
gotta-
that's the stories like that. People, I come in here. It's kind of a community here. I come in here. I see old friends. I see
is
Angel,
totally community.
Angel Sarati back there, who's been. He's literally an angel. He's helped out so many people.
You know how many jobs I've gotten just coming to a demo that Dan was doing years ago, and I'd be like, "This guy needed an extra guy or whatever." You just saw each other. You weren't strangers.
Exactly.
You know?
And it's an incredible environment to be able to meet people, talk to people. They come by. They come to the youth department. Angel also, he helps out photographers. He tells them what they need.
If he likes you.
If he likes you. I'm lucky he likes me.
No,
And he's a photographer too. He
is
makes
a-
pictures as well, and he's very knowledgeable. He has a huge a huge knowledge of history of photography, and he collects as well. So he's a gem to have here because somebody comes in with either analog or digital or vintage, and he understands it, he uses it, he collects it as well. So it's important to know that who you're dealing with.
Well, it's
the
all
youth
it's
department.
human, right? And I mean, look, these chairs are open for everybody. That was my whole thing. I made sure to keep this place going for the event space so that we can get these. You can't just put the cameras in people's hands. You gotta foster. I call it fostering because I think that's what you did. I mean, look, Victoria Will was one of your students, and now she's a world-renowned celebrity portrait photographer who shot everybody at Sundance one time on wet plate and made a book out of it.
Yeah.
And you fostered that. That wouldn't exist if you didn't take her and go, "Hey, man, let's show you this."
Well,
process.
she did have a particular vision, and,
Yeah.
and I think that's what photographers do, and that's why it's important to experiment and learn these processes. She saw that. I think she met us originally at Photoville.
Photoville's very cool.
20 years ago, and she saw it. She wanted to take a workshop. I don't think she had a chance to do it, whatever. And then she hired us. But the idea that, she had that, that vision of hands-on because she was already a pretty well-known photographer at that time doing amazing work. And she said, I want to do something different. And, I have a lot of respect for an artist that is willing to go out on a limb and say, this is something I'm reacting to. I want to do it. And Victoria was that person. And I think she did it 2 years, 2014, 2015. We helped her in 2015. And it was amazing to work with her. To go out to Sundance and, and see her. I mean, look, the thing you mentioned before was community. Community is an important thing because it's a way to have interactions and meet people and rub up against people you never wouldn't. That's part of the creative process. Wet plate was not just you learn the technique or take a class. It's that you meet other wet plate people. Over the years, I've learned as much from other wet plate people who I've met. I've always bring them to the darkroom, or artists that come in. Somebody may be learning a process, but they're a photographer, and you have access to them. The people who I employed to teach the works were also artists, so that the students had access to them as an artist and them as a creative as well as a technician. So the idea, and that's true in digital as well, having access to artists and people that know things they get to learn and you get to learn. And the community is built on that. And you make friends. You find people who are decent and care about you and care about process or care about people or other things. That's what photography has been for me. Not just the technical part, not just the camera. It's people. It always comes down to people.
Oh no, yeah, it's he recognize every time he comes in here. People always got to stop and say hi to him, stuff like that, and that comes from years of being present and being a resource for other people, helping other people get close to what they want. You know, I gotta. Do you ever think of any New York events that you would go plug and play into? I always think like if you set up a wet plate station at the Coney Island Mermaid Parade, you would have a field day.
Yeah, I'm kind of, I would say semi-retired at this point. I had the apparatus of the organization to help me do that. If I had to do it myself now,
Sponsored.
Well, look, I have worked with, I think the time now is for the young. I really want to help younger photographers and artists. I don't really need to be the front person. Jolene Loop, who I mentioned before, she sets up and does things. She's an amazing artist, incredibly great portrait photographer, and knows the process very well. And it's the sort of thing where if she sets up and does something, I will assist. I'll help her. She did something with Jazz Age Lawn Party, which we did for many years. In the summer, she set up in front of Flatiron, and she made tintypes there, which was great, and things like that. So yeah, I'm always happy to help young artists or assist with things like that, so that they can forge a path.
Do you have any resources like websites that younger photographers can go to for things that you think they should know about, or any organizations you think they should go check out? Because I feel like that's the big thing is there's a lot of information, but no way to know what to plug into.
Well, I mean, there's an organization in the South called Penland, and there are people that teach there. There's certainly the ICP, they still do. They got rid of a lot of their darkrooms, but they still do some black and white. There are not too many organizations. As time is going on, there's not too many organizations. I think money is drying up. We're in difficult times. Fewer and fewer organizations are offering these processes. I would say, if you're interested in a particular process, do hashtag wet plate or hashtag cyanotype or hashtag that, and see who are the artists that are doing stuff. And I highly recommend, if you can, if they're doing it, to do a private tutorial.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So another way to think about it also is like, a private tutorial could be like you can contact an artist who was teaching at some point, and see if they'll do the private tutorial, or you have another person or a friend to do it to bring the price down. If they do 3 people, and maybe they have their own darkroom or something like that, then you can bring the price down and then get more concentrated. I think is a much better way to learning than having 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people in a workshop without that attention. These processes require more one-on-one. And if you're interested in practicing it, there are different reasons to learn a process. It could be because you want to make something. It could be because you're interested in making the process as an artist, or from a historical perspective, or from conservation. Those are the main reasons to learn something.
Well, that's what I thought you were going to shout out, was a link to some sort of archive of something, or like, information that's like a data bank of encyclopedia for all. So like I used to go to all these websites to find out development times all the time easily and stuff like that.
I can't think of off the top of my head any particular organization, but you start digging on the interwebs and it'll come up if you do who's teaching this or so on and so forth. But I do think it's very important. Like I know Jolene does private tutorials. She's teaching a workshop in wet plate. I have a friend named Malik Buckman who teaches salted paper print, Van Dyke and cyanotype, and
Van
perhaps
Dyke I love Van Dyke, man.
Van Dyke.
Van Dyke browns are beautiful, man. Cyanotypes, if you do them right, make sure you use hydrogen peroxide. I'm just going to say I'm a big fan of the hydrogen peroxide bath.
And it's also very safe, as the chemicals are not invasive or toxic.
I used to date this girl. She would mop out on a bed sheet and then have people lay down with her and just make photograms. And she'd go to a laundromat and wash it and like just put it in a plain cycle, and she'd have a print.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's just easy. Like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, people look. I'm very good at responding to messages on Instagram. If you Instagram message me, I'm happy to hook you up with particular people who are doing particular things and guide you in certain ways. I know people have a lot of questions, or you call an organization, they don't necessarily have the person that can help you. I'm happy to guide you in the right direction.
If you're ever in New York or you're in New York, I guarantee if you stop by Angel to use department, this guy's sitting on a stool there for you, and he'll sign a lens board. I've seen him do it. He does.
I think I did it.
You're gonna have to sign one of my lens boards, man.
Pull
You
it
know.
out.
Well, I do want to. I would love to kind of get an overview of getting better at wet plate. First of all, I haven't done it in a long time, but I do want you to get in here and just do like a talk on stuff or like whatever topic.
Well, we
you
can
wanna
bring
get
up a topic, and we can talk about other things. I mean, I did want to talk
Go
a
for
little
it.
bit about these cameras.
Do it.
This is a Sony Alpha, the original one, which it's interesting that I bought here a million years ago when it first came out.
So he came on to the Monday stream I do on the events channel, walked in here with this on a rainy day. You remember that?
Yeah. The thing about the camera, the one thing I remember for years and years and years, I didn't jump on digital because all of the SLR digitals that came out before this came out had a mirror. Mm-hmm. And because of that mirror, the distance from the
Flange.
from the flange distance to the film plane or the digital plane was so long that there are certain lenses you could not put on it at all. Then when they came out with the mirrorless, they got rid of the mirror and the distance became so short that all you had to do was find all these adapters to put on any lens you want. In fact, I was telling the guy, I would tell all these, representatives, why don't you make a camera that's mirrorless or whatever? We can't do that. Or why don't you, why? And they say, it's never going to happen. And then this happened. And what I like to do is take digital technology, which is, pretty clinical, and, dirty it up with a soft focus lens or a vintage lens. And what I did is, this is an interesting lens. It's a Pinkham & Smith called the Gillies motion picture lens. So Pinkham & Smith was a very famous lens that was made in Boston. It was developed with the help, I believe, of Alfred Stieglitz, who was very interested in soft focus lenses because the lenses that he was using, these Cook lenses in England, were very expensive, and they had tariffs and things like that, which made it more expensive to bring them to the United States. Of course, we're not going to get into tariffs. Anyway, so anyway.
Don't even.
Anyway, so this lens was made for the soft focus motion picture lens, and the interesting thing about it is that I have Pinkham & Smith lenses for large format, but this was made for 35 millimeter format film, which is vertical, which is it's 18 by 24 instead of 24 by 36, so it's that direction. Anyway, it does cover a full frame. And it is soft focus, and I was able to mount it into a helicoid and found the right adapter. And it's a perfect way to use digital. That gives you a different look. That gives you a different effect. That that you do things. So that's the reason I like this particular camera. This lens took me 10 years to buy. I found this guy was talking about it on one of the blogs that he had. He was a professor. I think he's retired now out in Seattle, and I saw it. I'd never seen another one. I said, "Is that for sale?" He goes, "Well, I'm not ready to sell it, but when I am, I'll sell it to you." So every year for a year, I sent him an email, and I said, "Will you sell the lens?" And after 10 years, I emailed him. He says, "Yes, I'm ready to sell it."
I wonder what made him ready to sell it. I wonder what changed.
Well, he retired and he wasn't using it anymore, and it's time to move on. I think it's important. I think that there is an important aspect of collecting, of letting go, and putting things into other people's hands, and having them make things, and he had that kind of spirit. So
Man.
And at some point, I'm doing the same thing with mine. I do find lenses for people. I work with a lot of large format photographers, and a thing about lenses is that people still find it very hard to wrap their minds around what a lens does and what lens they should use and what lens will do what. Oftentimes they're told by their professor in college, use this, whatever, and they use that. Or they go to a camera store and the dealer behind the counter says, just use this. And they're not really diving into what the needs are or what the person is trying to say. And oftentimes they're constrained by having something that doesn't do it and trying to make it happen with what they bought. My attitude is, what do you want to do? Do you want to do landscape photography? Do you want to do portraiture? You're not going to use a landscape lens for a portrait, right? Are you going to be doing architecture? Are you going to be using lights a certain way? Are you going to use natural light? Are you going to be using strobe? And, I think it's hard to understand, to look at a lens and say, what's it going to do? It's an object. You really have to see what it does.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I like the idea of helping artists and photographers find the right tool that will help them say what they're trying to say.
Yeah, well, the lens is the tone, right? That's like the whole thing. I always tell people like light is more important than lens is more important than the camera.
Yeah.
And I think people get stuck on just like the weirdest specs, so to speak. And they can't look beyond that because it's almost like a safety blanket. It's a security thing. Like, well, I have this
Right.
speed, I have that, all that kind of. We're talking about manual focus lenses here. And
Angle of view, people don't, and coverage. People don't understand how
Yeah, yeah.
important coverage is, and having movement. So you use large format cameras and you have movements. You have to have enough coverage to take that into account. Some people like things that don't cover enough. They give you vignetting. They give you a particular look.
or minimum focusing distance, even it can change a lot.
Exactly.
And
depth of field, things like that.
So Mark is saying, I feel like a person doesn't learn a lens till they've been doing it for a bit and find their own style. I think it's part of it. I think it's part of like, you don't know what to look for, even though you're looking for it.
Well, it's kind of like, tasting something. You have to taste it before you know if you like it or not, or if it's something, is going to work for you. And I think too many people, and it's a lot of the youth stuff is still expensive and digital gear is still expensive. I think you have to, research, understand first, try it, see if you like it, see what it does, and then use it for a while. It's a very good point. And see if it's doing what you want it to do. Or sometimes it does something you don't like, but then you say, well, maybe that's something I can use for something else. Keep an open mind.
But you have to think that way, right? I think
Yes.
a lot of people are like looking for, I've seen people just put something together in one frame, go, I'm like, wait a second. They don't even know what they're looking for.
Right.
They saw some other image out there and they go, I want to make it look like that Avedon Marilyn Monroe shot.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, why? Why?
Well, I think the thing is people are afraid to find their own voice. They're just channeling somebody else's voice. And
That is it.
And I think it's very important for people to say, what do I want to say? Not what did Avedon say? I met a lot of photographers that say, how do I make this thing look like Avedon? Oh, I know the lens they're using. They can't use an 8x10 Deerdorf and a commercial Ektar, and that's what he did if you want to do that. But the next question is why? Why do you want to do something that's already been done?
They also don't understand the way you've interacted with that person while you're shooting is a huge factor, and the environment's a factor. Like they don't even put it. They get so stuck into the easy part of buy a thing that does something.
Well, let me just bring up Victoria Will for a second.
All right.
Because she is somebody who her personality brings out something in that person that makes that portrait what it is.
Oh, her story. I'm sorry. Go for it.
No, I mean, I think about her. I think about a lot of great portrait photographers. Who Mark Mann is another one who does that.
Mark Mann, we actually had him for a demo. We have to reschedule, but he's been in here. He's been on the show. Victoria Will is booked for next month.
Oh, really? Great.
Yeah.
Both very good friends. Jolene also. The reason I bring up Jolene is because she has this way of really making people feel at ease, and they let their guard down. And that is the camera, that's one part of it. But getting somebody to be able to reveal themselves is in itself an art form. It's a way of, getting them to show themselves.
Well, that's why that Avedon Marilyn portrait's so impactful, is because no one saw her like that. You know what I mean? But Victoria's story is pretty cool because if you don't know, she put out a book of wet plate of all these celebrities at Sundance. But the thing was that Sundance, all these photographers are shooting these celebrities. They have 2 minutes per photographer.
Right.
She would set out the process and shoot them straight up digital, and then they would be curious about what they're doing. They would tell their PR people to take a break, and they would want to be part of it. They're not getting through it. They want to be part of it. And that's why those portraits are sick.
When Jolene and I worked it was Jolene and I that worked at Sundance that year. And when I say it wasn't only a matter of her photographing it, they would come back, they would see the process. I remember Bob Odeker came in and went into the darkroom with Jolene and watched it. He would bananas. I remember meeting all of these actors who came back and watched the plates turn, and they were just like,
magic, man.
Blown with magic away. And I get to have, and very thankful to Victoria that I had that experience to be able to have that interaction and that experience with these actors.
So cool.
And that's sort of the power of photography, and it's the power of creativity. And that's another aspect of these processes that I think is very important. But I think you made a very good point. People are always so worried about the technique and the this and the that and blah, 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 blah. And they really don't pay attention to how am I interacting with, how do I get this person? Even if it's not a person, how do I get this subject, whatever it is, whether it's a landscape or whether it's an interior or how do you look at that building as a subject? And how do you look at that instead of what I want to get? How do I get that to give?
I spent 15 years shooting special effects makeup, right? people always ask you like, oh, what was the hardest part? And they think it's like the lighting. It's like, I can make the light do whatever I got to make it do from tech level. I'm dealing with someone that just got out of a chair after 5 hours of someone poking at them. You think they want to get into character? You think they even want to mess around with me right now? They're groggy. Some of them are nauseous because of the chemicals or whatever. Like, there's so much to get them to snap in. Like, no, now's the moment. All that's over with. Right. Now we're clicking. And that was the hardest part.
Right.
And also treating it. Yes, I'm looking at a zombie clown, but treat it seriously so that it's worth the time. The hardest part was getting those people to shake off all that and really want to be there. Because a lot of times they weren't even actors. They were just like testing a makeup and they didn't want to be in it. Or what didn't fit them properly. It wasn't meant for them because it was meant for someone that they're using on another product. These people, that was the hardest thing. I've had people vomit on my sets from like, the smell of like the zombie blood because that's instant coffee in it. But getting them to really hone in, that's where I got the best shots, was when they were like with me. Boom,
because
boom,
that's
boom, boom,
you
boom.
being with them, you know?
Shooting.
If you're with the camera or the this or that, I mean, you have to be present. That's the key.
But most people aren't in an environment like we put them in where they're being shot with like all these lights around them and there's people behind you that they can't see. They're hearing people talk, but they don't see, that whole thing. They're not in that environment. You've got to break down that guard. How many times have you just told everybody, get out? It's just let me shoot with them.
All the time.
Yeah. Just get out. Give me 2 minutes with them where they're not thinking about who's behind me.
You have to do that. Because, I mean, I've been in situations where I'm shooting a wet plate and somebody would come and tell me how to shoot it.
Oh, man. How did you do that? You must have lost your mind.
I just said, excuse me. Can you please? A lot of egos. I can tell you stories about that.
Was anyone right, though? Was anyone ever right about how you should
it's not right or wrong. It's, when somebody's doing that, they're putting their ego in your place. They're saying, this is how I would do it, and this is... They're taking that and owning it. When you're photographing somebody, you're the photographer, not the other person. You shouldn't have anybody telling you what happened there.
Screensaver.
Oh, you shouldn't have them tell you. You can seek advice. It's one thing to seek advice from somebody, and then if it makes sense for this or that, great. But when you're with somebody, that's your shot.
The worst cringe thing that people say behind my head is, what you should do?
Yeah.
And I'm like, kick you out?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
You want to make suggestions, make them, but don't tell me what
Right.
don't
Right.
Oh, man.
I wanted to talk about this camera a little bit. Bring up the image of, not that, it's a film image. It's below Ruddy, I think. Yeah, that one there. So this is Cecilia Kegler. She worked with me for a while. And a lot of the photographs I made were testing cameras, and she was nice enough to sit. And I used this camera, which I modified. I don't know if you can see it or not.
Yeah, I think
it's a Graflex that I retro mounted with a lens called a Rietzel. I think it's called a Pro Linear, which is get this, 135 millimeter. 135 millimeter f1.9 lens.
1.9.
1.9, and that was for 6x9, and it was on a special Mentor reflex camera, and those cameras notoriously never were. The shutters went bad after 80 years, and I wanted to use it on a camera that was more reliable. And so I had to find this camera here, which is a Graflex. That is it's a non-revolvable back, which means that the distance to the film plane was shallow enough, short enough, that I can get infinity by removing the front standard and making my own front standard to bring it back far enough to hit infinity. And because it's not revolving back, what I did was I ended up using a square format.
Oh, smart. So it doesn't matter.
So it doesn't matter. So it's
square.
kind of like a large Hasselblad or a large Rolleiflex like that. And it allowed me to do, this was done in the afternoon, I think in the fall. It was nearing 6 o'clock, and an f1.9 lens gave me the speed, right, so that I can shoot probably at about a 60th of a second at that time. But the beautiful thing about this lens is that shallow depth of field and the bokeh. And very few lenses do what that do. And once you understand what it does, once you test it, then you can apply it in certain ways. It gives incredible, that shallow depth gives incredible, sculpturing is what I would say. It gives a sense of 3 dimensions. Most lenses are very clinical. They flatten everything, so everything sort of looks like it's on one plane. This looks like it's coming out at you. So that's one of the things that I like to do. Finding a way to make it work.
Do you have any favorite film stocks? We're talking a lot about the lenses and cameras, but do you have any favorite film stocks?
I do like, I certainly like Kodak Tri-X is probably one of my favorite film stocks. I shoot mostly black and white, not as much color.
Tri-X is the OG. You could
I
develop
also
that.
like Ilford a lot. HP5.
No plus X for you?
I do. I mean, I do, depending on the lighting. I will use plus X. Sometimes I need it to be slower. I have piles and piles of film. I like vintage film. I like film that, I like old, film that has funkiness to it and things like that. I'll use anything. It's getting very expensive now to buy film, unfortunately. But I do like Tri-X.
But at least black and white, you can process it yourself. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to drop it off somewhere.
Well, I used, when I ran the organization, I had a darkroom. I did use some processing, not much, but there was a photo lab I liked using. But recently, I found a photo lab that I like a lot called Picture House, in a small darkroom. It's on 16th Street, and between 9th and 10th Avenues. They're a very interesting photo lab. They have a little bookstore, and they do. They have some lectures and things like that, and sometimes they have some workshops.
That's cool.
And they are very good. They have a lot of scanning capabilities. They do black and white printing. They do color processing, and they're very local to where I live. And I'm really enjoying working with them. So check them out. Picture House, small darkroom over on 16th Street.
So they're
West 16th Street.
They're diagonal that way from Adorama.
They're not far. Usually I stop there, drop off my film, and then I walk over here. And
Every time I see him, he's like, my doctor says I should walk, so I'm going to come bother you, all right? I'm hanging out, man. You never bother. You're always welcome here. I do want to get you in here to do a little bit more of a couple things,
Sure.
Fill some seats up, do some things,
Why not? How could it hurt?
It'll take me 5 years to get him to commit to this.
No.
For 2 weeks straight, I heard, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to talk about? What are we going to talk about? Well, guess what? It's now an hour and 15 minutes done. What are we going to talk about, Geoffrey? I don't know. You see? You guys think
we have
everything.
endless subjects.
You guys overthink everything. All the OG photographers are always like, we got to prepare. Let me know.
Well, you got to keep the wheels turning. You got to keep it lubricated. You got to come up with new ideas and keep on going and going and going.
Well, how about you go find
Life
me
is creating.
Find me that Olympus XA or XB. Come
I'll
on.
find it.
I still want a 35 Ti.
Okay, I'll dig. I'll dig.
You told me to stay away from electronic though.
I actually have a camera that I like a lot. I use it. I sold a lot of them because I was worried about there's nobody repairing them anymore. Even though I think Nippon is still working on them, but it's very expensive. If they have the parts, that's the problem. If they have the parts, and they're great cameras. I have a TVS2, which is a great camera. It's the TVS2, TVS3. Anyway, they have a 28 millimeter lens. It's a zoom, 28 to 56, I think, and it's one of the few point and shoots that has a 28 millimeter lens on it. So I like that camera. The other ones usually have 35 millimeter, but I do like those point and shoot cameras. The only problem is you worry about the
only point and shoot film camera that I'm still using is my little Epic, because it's got that it's basically a little hard shell. You slide it open, you're good. But that is, I'm not a fan of the lens. It's too sharp, I think, for a lot of things that I want. And but
Nikon L35.
L35s are dope. Yeah.
I love those cameras.
Yeah, those are very cool.
They're kind of like a mechanical. They're like a mechanical autofocus. You see the little, indicator going back.
You don't see them a lot at all. I can't. No. I haven't seen any really, but we can go on forever, guys. Listen, follow my man here. Drop me a DM. Say what's up if you're trying to get into this type of stuff or have any questions. He's very, very helpful to everybody here at all times. He definitely keeps me on my toes because what would I be if someone wasn't driving me crazy here? It's either you, Daniel, somebody drive me nuts.
This is going to be videotaped, right? So
it's live streamed.
It's live streamed, but do you also record it?
It's up there forever.
Up there forever. So
all right,
we're up there forever.
So if you're watching some playback, drop a comment from my guy here. If you have ever been photographed by him, I'd love to hear from you in those comments. If you've taken a class with this guy, I would love to hear about you in those comments. Don't forget to subscribe. There's 80 episodes of this. So if you were into this, I got 79 other people you guys should meet. But don't forget, tomorrow, Daniel Norton is live, 5 p.m. right here. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not Daniel Norton. Ab Cisse is back. I'm sorry, on the events channel. Boom. This QR code, subscribe to that channel for all the classes out of here. And when Geoffrey comes back to do a class, it'll be streamed on that channel. So make sure you scan this, hit subscribe there, hit subscribe here. Oh my gosh. Actually, I'll do one of these. Hey, look at that. Subscribe graphic. Look at me. I'm modernizing. All right, Geoffrey. It's always been a pleasure, man.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Adorama.
I'll see you next one. Guys, enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you. Hopefully, I'll see you tomorrow in that chat room, okay? And the rest of the month is stacked with events as well. So check out adorama.com/events, and we'll see you on the next one. Later, guys. Peace. You want to say goodbye to the people?
Bye. Feel free to get in touch. Follow me on Instagram. Send me any messages. I'm happy to help out as best I can.
Later, guys. Be good.